What's up folks, Mike here at Wellin Watches. Welcome to the video, and today's video is just an update regarding the Seiko Sea Urchin in my collection. Now, a couple of weeks after I made the first video, unfortunately I did drop and managed to completely destroy the watch, breaking both the front and back glass and severely damaging the movement. So the watch sat on my bench for a couple of weeks while I decided what it was I was going to do with it, and then I finally decided that I wasn't going to bother repairing the movement. I was going to replace it outright, but I was going to upgrade it at the same time to get some extra benefits. I also changed the front and back glass. That was a relatively easy thing to do, so I'm going to cover in this video the kinds of glass that you can use in terms of thickness and diameter for the front and back, and what I did regarding the movement itself. And also at the end of the video I'm going to briefly touch on how to remove and reattach the bezel. So if, for example, you wanted to change the bezel insert to a different color or something like that, and you managed to get a new bezel insert from somewhere like Degas, then I'll show you how you can remove and reattach the bezel safely and easily. But one of the first things you'll notice straight away about the Sea Urchin is that this one has a domed mineral glass. The stock watch comes with a flat mineral glass, but you can change it and you can have a domed glass if you so choose. Now the back glass has also been replaced. You can see there's no Seiko print on that. That's just a standard flat mineral glass in the back there. And again, that's a relatively easy thing to replace as well. So if you do manage to break the back glass on your Sea Urchin, you can replace it with a 27mm diameter glass. If you're feeling really flush, you could use sapphire, but to be honest, I think you'll be quite happy to get away with just using a standard mineral glass. So 27mm in diameter and 1.3 to 1.5mm thickness will suffice just fine. And I'll leave all the information in the description below for those of you looking to change the glass in your Sea Urchin. Now, as far as the front glass goes, you can have a flat or domed glass. It really is quite a forgiving watch. You can change between the two if you so choose. The diameter of the glass, providing you have the original gasket still in the front, is 31mm dead. And you can go from thicknesses from 1.5 up to 2.6mm thick, as long as it's a 31mm glass. But it is important that you still have the original gasket and it's in good condition in order to keep the water resistance. So that's how you change the glass. Now you can go for either mineral or sapphire, depending on what you prefer. You can have AR coated sapphire if you so choose, and sapphire does have a much higher scratch resistancy than mineral glass, but it is much more prone to shock or fracture damage if the watch is dropped or knocked quite badly. So I've kept it with the a standard mineral glass in there because I wear this watch quite a lot and it takes quite a lot of knocks and scratches, so replacing a mineral glass is only a matter of a couple of pounds or a couple of dollars if you're in the US to replace, so it's no biggie, and it only takes me 5 minutes to do. But if you are looking to replace the glass in your Seiko Sea Urchin, or any watch for that matter, you should look at getting one of the cheap glass presses that you can find on Amazon or eBay, because it will make your life much easier. You don't have to spend a fortune on tools, just a simple one will do the trick. If you don't have the means or access to all the proper tooling, you can get away with just using the cheaper one. Now, moving on to the movement that I changed, it was pointed out in the first video that I said it had a 7S26 movement originally, and that was incorrect. It does actually use a 7S36 caliber movement. The difference between the two is only really a dual count. They are pretty much fundamentally the same movement, but it was an error on my part. It is in fact a 7S36 movement originally used. However, I decided to do away with that movement since it was quite badly damaged, and although it could have been repaired, I decided to upgrade the movement to a Hattori NH36 caliber movement. Now, Hattori is one of the many groups of the Seiko company. And their movements, as you can see, if we're looking through the back, the movements look almost identical because they are pretty much produced in the same factories as well. So the movement looks identical, but there's a few parts that have been changed, And the reason I decided to go with an NH36 movement is it offers a couple of benefits over the stock movement, and that is that it has hacking seconds. So if I pull out the crown, you'll see the seconds hand stops, and if I replace the crown inwards, the second starts again. But one of the other main benefits is the fact that it also has a manual winding feature. So if I leave the watch for a couple of days, put it down, and want to come back to it and use it, I can just pick it up, give it a couple of winds to get it going, set the time, and it's all good to go. Now with the original movement you can't do that because it is fully automatic and there is no choice to manual wind or hack the seconds. So I decided, what the hell, why not upgrade the movement itself. They're not massively expensive, and if it's something that tickles your boat, then you can certainly find one if you search hard enough online. So that's what's happened with this Sea Urchin. I'll zoom out a little bit here. So if you did want to replace the glass, like I said, that's a fairly easy, straightforward thing to do. Do get yourself a nice cheap glass press. Nothing fancy, just something to do the job. And I'll leave the information in the description below in terms of what kind of sizes that you need, and all that kind of information below. In the next section of the video, I'm going to show you how to safely remove the bezel itself from the watch, and what parts make up the bezel, and then how to reattach it correctly. Welcome back, folks. In this section of the video I'm going to go over how to safely remove the bezel from your Seiko Sea Urchin. Now this method can apply to quite a lot of diving watches and other watches that have similar types of bezel. Now I appreciate that not everybody out there has all the specialist tools to remove bezels, so I've gone with the method that's most easiest and accessible to all people. Now I do start off with a warning that this is not the best method to remove a bezel from any wristwatch, but it is a method that works for the most part for most wristwatches if you don't have access to the specialist tools. So one of the things you'll need is a simple case knife like this, and you can find these on eBay, Amazon, and quite a lot of places online. And a case knife is a useful tool for doing many jobs, usually to take the snap backs off watches, but you can also use it for bezels as well if you're careful. Now the case knife is not meant to be razor sharp. As you can see, the edge of this knife is actually dull and blunt, but you can pick these up relatively cheaply and easily on most online places, so get yourself one of these as it will come in most handy. I wouldn't recommend using scalpel blades or kitchen knives, as you're likely to damage yourself and the watch, and you certainly don't want to jab a knife into your hands. So be safe, get yourself a case knife with a nice dull blade. Now although the blade is dull, it does have a slight edge that thins down, and that is all you need. You don't need razor sharp blades, so think safety first. Now if you don't want to damage the metal on your watch, or the lugs on your watch, you're going to need a piece of tape. Sellotape will suffice if it's the only thing to hand, but if you have a thicker tape, then that's even better. What I've got here is some polyamide tape, and this is used in the watch industry to cover up bracelets or parts of watch cases, and to protect it against the buffing wheel when they're being polished. So this is quite thick, tough tape, and you apply it to the area that you don't want to get damaged. So you apply the tape over like that, and what you want to do is you want to pick a corner. I've already chosen this corner up here, but you can choose any of the corners to lift the bezel from. Now on the bezel there is a thin line between the case and the bezel, and that's where you want to get the case knife into. You want to get it into this gap here and very gently prise the bezel up and away from its lip. So we've chosen this upper corner in here. Now you don't want to go full hell for leather in taking off the bezel. If it doesn't want to lift with relative ease, then there's no point forcing it. Just find another corner and start another corner, and if necessary rotate the bezel a little bit, and keep trying it, and gently lift the bezel from the case, and it should come off relatively easily. So we're going to pop the case knife in here. Difficult to do with the camera in front of your face. So there we go, and that's the bezel off. Very simple construction with the bezel on this watch, and pretty much on most Seiko watches it's fairly the same. So if we zoom in here, we can see the construction, if we can focus. So you have the main casing, and then you have this small silver gasket, and that locks into place with this drilled hole here. And always make sure that when you're replacing the bezel that this gasket is correctly lined up. There's no need to use any lubrication, but if you find that you've come across a watch with a very stiff bezel, you can apply a little bit of grease to the parts that seem to be catching the bezel in some way. The inside of the bezel is fairly straightforward. So you have the bezel insert, the bezel itself, and then on the inside, which you might not be able to see, there's a small metal ring which applies tension throughout. Yeah, you can just about see that in there, I think. And then these little machined out notches are the part that hits the click on the inside gasket. So there's not a lot to it. You just change your bezel insert if that's what you're trying to do. Change your glass, do what you need to do, and then you can return the bezel back onto the watch. Now ideally, again, you'll need a glass press. It will make life a lot easier, but you can refit it by hand. So once you've made sure that the gasket is in there nice and snug, you need to put the bezel slightly back in place and give it a little turn, and as you turn it, you'll feel it just starting to catch the click. When you feel that, you can press down and it will click into place like that, and you should be good to go. If you find that when you replace the bezel it doesn't click nice and easily like this, then somewhere along the line something's not seated properly. So just carefully reprise the bezel back up, lift it off, and try it again. Make sure everything's in the correct place. But that's basically how you remove the bezel and reattach it on the Seiko Sea Urchin. And like I said, it does apply to many other watches. But I will have to stress that you need to take great care when doing this. Do not use any sharp knives, do not use scalpels. Always use something like a case knife if you don't have access to the correct tools. If you use something like this, which is a very sharp scalpel, then if you slip when you're removing the bezel, then you're going to end up with a very sharp blade going into your hand, and that can cause all sorts of nasty damage, nerve damage, things like that. So don't use something like a scalpel or a sharp kitchen knife. It's not necessary. Get yourself one of these cheap case knives. They're about £2–3 at most, and you'll be good to go. So that's it for this video. Hopefully I'll come back with some more videos on tools and how to do other things with regard to watch repairs. But until then, take care and have fun.